Well, it's been a while. It's been quite a while. I don't think I've actually turned this camera on since last year. She already hates my jokes. We have made our way to Indian Head, which is in Lincoln, New Hampshire. And what we have today is an adventure where we have decided to take a look at, including our puppy, actually. Our puppy's here as well. Hello. I told Tiffany to wear a jacket. Where's your jacket?
It's at home.
She didn't listen. To Indian Head for the Betty and Barney Hill incident. And this is the marker here. Now, Betty and Barney Hill, it's pretty famous for a lot of reasons. This really did begin kind of the whole UFO phenomenon for the whole entire world. This was massive. So basically the story goes that this couple, Betty and Barney Hill, they had made their way to Canada to celebrate their honeymoon. And they were going to stay in Montreal overnight, but they actually chose to come home sooner. And the reason was because there was going to be a hurricane. Allegedly, of course. I don't know what happened there. But so they made their way home, and they were driving through the night when they, around 10:30, noticed in the sky something that was glowing, something that was a lot of light going on, and they decided to take a look. Now, Barney had got out of the vehicle, and gosh, you really don't know, but imagine here, you've got mountains around you. It's the 60s, so it's not like you can Google anything, and you're looking at your phone or something. You can't do that. This being one of the most interesting cases, and really, I would say the trailblazer for when it comes to UFOs. Betty and Barney Hill, it was the first real UFO encounter that really caught, people's attention all over the world. And from what I understand, it really wasn't supposed to. Betty and Barney Hill, they didn't actually want this to be a big public thing, so much to the point where it ended up being leaked. It was leaked by the Boston Traveler. So it's interesting, and if you pay attention to the facts and what is being said is really, I'm a believer and not a believer at the same time, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to talk more about the story. So you have this couple, and they go on this honeymoon, and basically what happens is this glowing light is following them, and it's following them as they continue to travel. And it's nighttime, it's the 60s. You're not Googling like, what is this light in the sky as you're driving around? You can't do that. So they continue on their journey, and lo and behold, this light keeps following them. So Barney gets out, he has a look. He goes, maybe it's a satellite, maybe it's something else. And they just continue their journey. And as they continue their journey, this light seems to get closer and closer. And it's not going anywhere. So this light is getting closer and closer. We're over here by the car. Tiffany's freezing her buns off. I told her to bring her coat. She didn't bring her coat. So here we are at the car filming the video. It's toasty in there, sweetie.
Yes.
I guess I could probably get in too, but I'm not going to because I'm hoping to get abducted at this point. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll drop me back in Canada. I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
If they have
the video doesn't come out, whoever watches this, you know what happened.
That's true. And Betty and Barney Hill also had a dog.
Yes.
And we don't bring our dog into our videos usually.
Yeah.
So this is, watch out. We don't know what's going to happen next. So there's this light following them around, and it's in the sky. It's ping-ponging back and forth. And they take a look. Barney had a gun on him as well. So I don't know if he felt like he needed to use it or something like that. But I know, as the kids would say, he was strapped. But he takes a look. They're disturbed, but they're thinking satellite. They're thinking helicopter, plane,
aircraft, yeah.
anything that is supposed to be in the sky.
Mhm.
And that, doesn't solve anything. It continues to follow them. And then what actually happens is around 10:30, they get to this spot here. I'm assuming, things looked a bit different then. And they get to this spot here. So the aircraft stops. It stops. So what would you say? 10?
Barney described it as about 10 stories up
10 stories
over
up.
the trees.
Completely still. And he gets out of the car with binoculars, and he can see in these windows somewhere around, I've seen 10 beings, I've seen 9, I've seen 9 to 12, so somewhere around there, these beings, and from what I understand, these beings are in the glass, and they're wearing black, someone said like black suits,
Shiny metallic suits.
I think Men in Black when they say that, but we know that's probably not the case.
Gray skin.
Yeah, known as the Greys. That was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the original Grey's Anatomy. I'm not too sure. But they all leave the window, and they're staring at him, but they all leave the window except for one.
Yeah.
And one stays there. And from what I understand, these beings, whatever they're staring, they start touching some levers. And they are communicating or attempting to telepathically with Barney.
Mm-hmm.
Barney freaks out, as I would too.
Yeah.
And starts to run back to his car, and he speeds off.
Because however they were communicating with him, he felt the sense that they were telling him to stay put, stay where you are.
Right.
Which caused him to panic, of course. And he ran back to the car and sped off.
Mm-hmm. That means Barney would have headed south in this direction here. So he would have come from this direction. Who knows where the song? I don't know. Maybe it's up here now. I should probably be careful. She's gonna laugh at me. And then he would have gotten his vehicle and proceeded south. Now, what happens between Indian Head and approximately Ashland is where it gets very, very interesting. So he continues to go south, and as they're proceeding south, there is now these beeping sounds that happen. And these beeping sounds, from what I understand, they were like a series of beeping.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose consciousness, Barney and Betty Hill.
Right.
And they lose consciousness for about, I think it's like 30 minutes or something like that. Like it was like 35 miles.
Right.
So they lose consciousness, and another series of beeps happen, and they regain that consciousness. So now you have Betty and Barney Hill, who have had this alien UFO thing follow them. Encounter. I'm using the word thing. And now they've regained consciousness. They continue home. From what I understand, not a lot was said.
Right.
They didn't say much on their way home.
They felt groggy.
Disoriented.
Mm-hmm.
And they continued to make their way home. After that, I'm not going to give you word for word the whole story, but basically as it goes, as they get home, one big thing is they saw these marks on the trunk of their vehicle, which was pretty odd. They were the size of like a silver dollar. There was about 12 of them.
Looked like the spots had been like the car had been polished. Yeah. And they described the series of beeping sounds coming from the trunk.
Yeah.
So
interesting. That one always got me. I thought that was the fact they sort of came home with like evidence, I guess.
Sure.
It was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Betty's dress was ripped. And there was some type of stain on it.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And she felt the need to put her luggage outside.
Yeah, she didn't want to bring in any of the food that they had with them, any of their luggage.
Yeah.
She had the sense that things were contaminated, including themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And after that, they did tell some close people She called her sister.
But they originally agreed not to tell anyone.
That's true. And then Betty broke that, which,
Right.
whatever, I understand. Hey, you get abducted by an alien.
Probably going to tell someone.
Probably going to tell somebody. So, we jumped in the car. It's cold. Both got our vests on, too. Apparently, winter coats is just not a thing for us. I don't really know. Anyway, so they get home. They weren't going to tell anybody. Betty told her sister. Slowly over time, it really ended up blowing up pretty big. It was leaked to the what it was. Oh, I said it earlier. The Boston.
I'm not sure.
Whatever the one I said earlier, that one, the Boston something. Once it was leaked, it really became the trailblazer for when it comes to alien abduction, alien phenomenon, UFO, anything. There's movies, there is several documentaries. It is really
very interesting.
Yeah, and it really is the trailblazer for anything UFO related, from the way we depict UFOs, from the way we, even to this day, in movies, it's just really the first one. And I guess the biggest debate that I see, and I wanted to weigh on this as well, is what do we think? I was saying out there when you retreated to the vehicle because it's freezing, I was saying I'm a believer and I'm also not a believer. I go back and forth. When it comes to Barney and Betty Hill, I believe them.
Me too.
I think Barney was a postal worker, Betty was a social worker. They seemed like they had a good head on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And we were saying we've done some long drives. And I don't think we've ever looked at each other and be like, hey, sweetie, you want to make up an alien abduction for the time before we get home?
Yeah.
As you're like driving through the night. It just doesn't seem like a thing people do. Yeah. And when you listen to these interviews from hypnosis that they deal with when they went under for hypnosis, and just they were interviewed separately by people.
Their stories are very consistent.
They are really consistent, and they do seem traumatized.
Yeah, the hypnosis
is incredible.
Yeah, they get really emotional and they panic when they get to the part where they sort of lost consciousness and don't remember exactly what happened to them.
Yes.
So, and the fact that they didn't want a lot of publicity out of fear of, sounding crazy, that just makes it more believable as well.
Yep.
They wanted to talk to professionals or specialists or whatever in that kind of thing. But they didn't want a whole debacle surrounding them. So that in itself makes it believable for me. I think they definitely experienced something.
And people will say, and I understand why, it's very out there. No pun intended, UFO.
I guess Betty had a series of dreams that lasted around 5 nights after what they experienced. And maybe that was sort of subconsciously her memory coming back. But what was reality and what was, just a dream is who can say.
I've seen, obviously this UFO encounter took over the world. It was everywhere in every country.
Yeah.
It became such a phenomenon. You see, every theory exists, from drugs to planes to everything in between. But you have to believe, and I think it's very important to know that I think, something we've talked about before is there's no way we're the only things out there. There's no way. The world is too big. The world, exactly. I shouldn't say the world. The universe is way too big, like you're saying. So it's interesting. I know this story has been told 100 times, and I know there's a million videos on YouTube about it. So I didn't want to sit here and give you every fact about the entire story as much as I wanted to bring you here. I think that's the big difference, and the advantage we have is we can bring you to right where it happened.
Yeah.
So what we are
Pretty cool
going
to be here.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I feel like I got to be looking up in the air. There's going to be a flying saucer here soon. So
Yeah, it's kind of eerie.
It is a bit eerie. So our next stop now is we are going to now do the drive from Indian Head to Ashland. So this is to me the eeriest part of the drive, because this is where they don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know if I remember anything. I mean, I don't remember a lot already, but we'll see. So we're going to make our way south to Ashland, and there's not really an approximate place, but I think I know where we'll go. So we'll make our way there, and we'll see how long how does that feel?
I wish we knew exactly where Barney turned off.
Yeah.
In that series of events in that time span where they don't remember, because I guess, when the beings were telepathically communicating with him, that's what prompted him to panic and get in the car and speed off to try to escape, because he felt like they were going to abduct them. I guess he said to Betty,
Scary.
They're going to capture us, and he was in such a panic. And after they heard the first series of beeps, they lost consciousness, but Betty vaguely remembered Barney randomly taking a turn down a dirt road, and that's where they were, remembered or supposedly captured by the beings. So I wish we knew exactly where that turnoff was, but
maybe someone will telepathically tell us where to go. Woo! That's my alien sound.
Good. Nailed it.
With that being said, join us as we head to Ashland here. And we're going to walk the walk, and we're going to make our way south as they would have, unconsciously, I suppose.
We'll drive a little slower than I'm sure Barney was going.
Yeah, with a little less flying saucers. So stay with us, and here we go. So we're in the car right now. We don't have our microphones plugged in, so I apologize if the audio is not quite the same. But we are making our way south. So at this point, Barney and Betty Hill would not be conscious. So interesting. This is where it really got interesting. So they gathered through hypnosis all these interesting events that they went through, which sound a lot like experiments almost, in like medical examinations.
Yeah.
So
examined their bodies and asked questions
telepathically.
And they asked why Barney's teeth came out and Betty's didn't, which she explained to them that dentures. For him it was dentures due to an injury, but she also explained to them that a lot of people have fake teeth because as humans get older, their bodies start to deteriorate, and those beings did not understand what aging was or what years meant.
Yeah.
It's just super, super interesting. So we're about halfway now to where Betty and Barney would have gotten when they regained their consciousness. And I just can't imagine being on this road in the middle of the night being chased by a flying saucer. That would be terrifying.
I'm looking up. I don't see anything. I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely a longer ride than if you actually think it's going to be.
Yeah. It's both fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Got to be looking around. You never know.
Yeah.
Where the flying saucers will be. But yeah, we're on our way to Ashland. And this is where they would have been fully unconscious and they can't recall anything. So.
And they say that it was about 35 miles that was unaccounted for. But the time that they should have realistically arrived home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire,
It's 2 hours.
It should have been about 2 hours earlier. So what happened in that time is pretty interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, they stopped a few times. We
Sure.
know they stopped
As you do.
to take a better look at the spacecraft.
Yeah.
But still, that's a significant amount of time to just not remember anything.
Absolutely. And now, yeah, we're just continuing this way down the highway. Lots of mountains and stuff here in New Hampshire. You can see them in the distance as we keep driving here.
It's beautiful here, but if you're from New England and you've driven on the roads in New Hampshire at night, you know that it's pitch black. There's no street lights at all.
Especially in the 60s, right? Like,
Yeah.
not everything's... I doubt everything was built even as much as it is now.
Right.
So...
And they said that there were 0 cars on the road. So...
Didn't pass anyone.
I can imagine feeling pretty confident that you're going to be abducted by some alien species is the most terrifying thing you could probably experience.
Absolutely. We made it. We are in Ashland. I remember my journey, though. How about you?
Yes.
So we did the 35-mile trek back and just drove, down the highway where they wouldn't have remembered anything. And it's just, like you were saying, kind of interesting to be like, can you imagine not remembering that or being chased by a UFO?
It was a long drive.
Mm-hmm. It was a long drive. And
to not remember.
That's a long time to not remember stuff. So in that time, who really knows what exactly did happen to these guys? So it's a really unique story. It's cool to just go to the landmarks, and we feel like being in New Hampshire, we have access to a lot of really unique opportunities. And even though sometimes stories have been told a million times, it's cool to just go to the places where maybe those people who are a fan of, UFO encounters and research this stuff maybe haven't been able to physically stand in Lincoln, New Hampshire, or come to Ashland. And that's really just what we want to do, is share that story and show those landmarks. So there's not really too much to say besides, what we've already said, but we just wanted to do that journey and sort of feel what they felt when, well, I mean, they don't remember, but what they would have maybe.
We're interested to hear your thoughts as well.
Do you believe in UFOs?
If you believe it or what you think.
Give us your opinion there in the comments, and thank you, I should say, for bearing with us. We haven't put out a video in a few weeks, and
holidays and life.
That's pretty much it. I'm sure everyone else felt that as well. So a happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
From the Ghoul Gallery. It doesn't matter if it's January or October. It's spooky around here.
Always Halloween in our hearts.
There you go. And it's definitely the Betty and Barney Hill incident is definitely a spooky one.
Yeah.
With that being said, thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, uncle, dog, nephew, nephew's dog. And we've got some more coming soon, okay?
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.